Epilogue, to amend past sins.
Dom followed the invitation's instructions and returned to Lord Stein's place. The last time he'd been inside, it had looked different. No doors, for one blown away in some fiery explosion. There were no bodies on the floor, shell casings to slip on, and no undead ghouls ripping people to shreds. Dom's cheek hurt. The pain and memories would get worse and worse until he found himself at the bottom of a bottle at Adela's speakeasy again. He was sure this maddening outcome would be the case. From his office, Lorenzo's invitation in hand, the meeting sounded possible. On the cab ride over, his guts started to wrench about, and his facial scar throbbed. Passing through the new, shiny, spinning doors had been rough before the memories hit him. He removed a black vial from his waist pocket and downed it. The effects were swift, and the pain resolved immediately. He continued with a smile and a spring in his step. The pain and memories were bound to hit eventually, but currently locked away by the primal bliss granted by the damning concoction. As he walked by, most workers acknowledged him with a smile. Even a few security personnel nodded in his direction. The doorman, sporting a moustache, tipped his cap while he guided his young colleague to take over from the bellhops outside. The individuals who had experienced the attack on the building were tough and resilient. Many original staff members had perished, while others chose not to return to work. He had a hunch that Stein had reassigned them within his complex organization and brought in a fresh group of loyal followers. The detectives were glad to see the twins. Veronica and Jessica played the part perfectly with the same uniform, makeup, and mannerisms. Dom couldn't tell them apart, so he referred to them as the ladies, or girls. On the other hand, Jackie knew their full names and had managed to figure out the great mystery. It amused Dom that Jackie, of all people, could find even the minute differences in people. "Ladies, you're looking well. I got a note that said I missed a few appointments with the good Dr. Artem." He received polite silence and porcelain smiles. Jackie was quick on the uptake after his boss attempted to break the ice. "Hey, girls, how's the Chinese food today? V, you got your money from the bookie last night. Jess, your makeup is perfect as always." The girls let their professional faces melt away into smiles. They waved Dom on without prying their eyes from the orange object of their sudden and consuming amusement. He thought about leaving Jackie with his fawning friends while he slipped upstairs, but thought better of it. He wouldn't leave his partner in the lobby to have the time of his life while he dealt with family business alone. If he had to suffer, so did Jackie. He scooped up his Viney, Don Juan, and headed for the elevator. The girls called after them, "The good doctor will be down to collect you shortly, Mr. McKivell." Dom winced. Seeing they had caused offense, Veronica and Jessica apologized. Dom didn't give them time to blabber on. "Dominic, Mr. Dominic, if you have to." Dom and Jackie waited for Artem at a tiny table in the lobby. The dining duo was interrupted when the shadow of a large armed man came over them. "You know, detective, I should have gone into dentistry. Trying to get you to my table feels similar to pulling teeth." Dom slipped quickly from the table, unconsciously placing it between them. "Ah, Doc, things have been crazy lately," with an old guy rising from the grave. "How is Stein's lady?" Artem's craggy face bore a confused expression. "Baroness Frankenstein is well. It cost an arm and a leg to smooth matters over, but I am no stranger to having such currency available on short notice." Artem was unamused by the direct and intrusive question. His expression demanded an answer to his original query, something he had noticed had gone unanswered. Dom caved to the doctor's menacing glare. "I got busy. Saving the town from crazy Egyptian pharaohs eats into my sabbatical time. Lorenzo has me covered with meds, anyhow." Artem stepped back, aghast at the mention of the meds. "Ah yes, I recall him coming and talking to me at length about that medication. It was a desperate measure from a desperate father." The doctor continued to look Dom over as his hand began to rub the bottom of his chin. "Have there been any strange after effects?" Artem waved for the detective to join him as he approached the elevator. Dom thought about it as the two men entered the elevator. I can't think of any. No horns or tails popped up. I still have all my bits and pieces. I feel great after taking the stuff. I have gotten hungry for sandwiches around vampires. Artem rubbed his chin again. Do you feel this hunger around Lorenzo? Dom grimaced. No. If I ate sandwiches each time he worried about me, I would never be able to pay the rent. Artem scanned Dom inquisitively as he replied to Dom's quip. Intriguing. The sandwiches, do they end the hunger? Dom shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. Whenever the pain hits, I've been popping those meds. And when the hunger strikes right after, I grab a hoagie, he explained. Sensing an increasing unease, Dom swiftly changed the topic. Oh, Lorenzo mentioned that Lord Stein wanted to chat with me about something. My master is in the building. He has been in a private meeting for many hours, talking to several important contractors. Lord Stein wanted to discuss a matter with you after we finish your vastly overdue examination. On cue, the elevator swung open to Adam Stein's office. Moonlight played across the same Spartan decorations that adorned it the last time Dom visited. Fewer ghouls these days, he noted as he wandered in. Objects covered by a large velvet canvas replaced the room's sitting area. After getting around the mysterious pile, the group spied the massive black desk of Adam Stein. It was unoccupied and in far better condition than it had any right to be. Dom spied the expert patchwork as the group approached within arm's reach. A new marble slab replaced the old top. Its woodwork had some TLC as well. It was so good that Dom could barely make out even the worst damage. The desk slid aside by its full length with motorized fluidity. As it slid away, a new and terrifying thing rose from the floor to replace it. Made of steel and straps, watched over by sentinel armatures holding dangerous-looking tools of the medical persuasion. Once the oversized surgical slab fully ascended, several extending drawers and rolling carts ejected from the sides of the clinical terror device. The coup de grace was the theater lights. Once hidden in the depths of the black-painted ceiling, they now shone on the reflective metal of the newly formed surgical suite. Dom had to shade his eyes from the oppressive light above. What the hell, Doc? You said a checkup. Artem went about preparing the table for its next visitor. Indeed, a well-overdue examination. What is your degree in, again? Mortician ing. Dom stumbled in his attempt to define a university degree for what Dr. Artem did. He realized halfway through that any degree that involved courses on grave robbing and vivisection would likely be frowned upon by a higher academic body. What was more, he realized Jackie wasn't with him. The gallant Gord had done it again. Dom shook his head as he filed a reminder to tie Jackie to him the next time he had to suffer a visit to the good Dr. Artem. The doctor had barely gotten the detective seated before the examination began. For half an hour, Dom was undressed, poked, prodded, and interrogated. Dr. Artem took copious notes and sketches of Dom's most interesting scars. Artem displayed his most recent sketch to Dom after examining his back. Would you say the extent of your pain from this injury feels appropriate to my rendition of this scar? Dom stared at the sketch of his back, divided by a deep laceration. It doesn't hurt, Doc. Artem waited for more of a response. The silence prompted Dom to continue. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I know what it felt like. It felt like someone split me in half like a log. Jackie threw some of Lorenzo's meds on it, and we were ready for round 2, in a flash. Oversized fingers quested over the area a second time before writing lengthy paragraphs on areas surrounding the sketch. Dominic's flesh hardly showed signs of discoloration where the magical blade had nearly ended him. Continuing his research, the doctor asked, "How often do you take the medication?" "Not sure. I have found some empty containers. I must have down 2 or 3 a week, maybe." Artyom showed his surprise. Taking that amount of the medication keeps your pain at bay. When Dom affirmed with a curt nod, he continued, "Several people were concerned you would overuse it. Overdosage could lead to addiction. Addiction could devolve into troubling activities for you and those around you. Do you understand?" The doctor turned and held Dom's unresisting hand. A cotton cloth, stinking of rubbing alcohol, was gently worked over the detective's fingers seconds before a flash of metal from a needle pricked the tip faster than Dom could react. The shiny metal was carefully transported to a microscope and quickly processed for review. The doctor gently pressed a glass microscope slide to the drop and walked into one of the laboratory's storage closets, muttering some ponderance in Romanian as we went. The elevator door dinged, and a small orange-headed figure stepped out, holding a butcher paper-wrapped parcel and singing quietly. Dom turned to his tiny partner, who was jittering with the energy only the simultaneous affection of two women could bring. Artem returned to the room with a curious eye. "Ah, the partner has come," Jackie nodded at Artem. The casual shared demeanor between his partner and Stein's modern, Igor, caused Dom's detective senses to tingle. By his recollection, Jackie had never been up the Babylon's elevator. He thought he had barely interacted with Dr. Artem. "When did you two get chummy on me?" The question shocked the doctor and plant monster alike before Artem laughed. The gravely pitch and faint touch of madness was nightmare fuel. It prickled at Dom that the two of them shared some inside joke. "Your partner occasionally comes to extort free sandwiches from our lobby restaurant. He also distracts our desk clerks whenever possible. He has become quite the fixture in the facility over the last few months." Dom had to shake off his shock. Jackie having his own place to hang out was not something he had considered. He had taken for granted that Jackie would always be at his side. Dom felt a prick of pain from his scar and rubbed his cheek. He had been driving Jackie away as the pain began to get the better of him. "Damn," was all Dom could manage at this revelation. Jackie waited at the elevator door as he waited for his boss to get off Dr. Artem's examination table and dress. Once Dom was safe for public interaction, he pried for more answers. He wanted to know about his suddenly cozy relationship with the people under the underworld baron for the whole damned city. "It's all good, boss. It was the first place I came to check for birds. The way I figure it, the thieving sky rats would come here, 'cause the pastrami is tar die for." Dr. Artem quickly gathered his things and had the table folding itself back into its underfloor lair. In a few seconds, the menace of the room and its blinding light were gone, and the desk was back in its proper location. Lorenzo and Lord Stein arrived by elevator 5 minutes later. By that time, Dr. Artem had secluded himself in one of the offices that lined the internal wall of the expansive office. He left the quartet to chit-chat, dispensing with the pleasantries all such meetings of circumstance required. Dom bore a wicked smile as his tensions eased in the presence of comrades. "So the meeting has a timer. The big windows are a nice touch. If negotiations take too long, some of its participants become living tiki torches." Lorenzo poked Dom in the ribs good-naturedly. "Who raised you to be such a wise ass?" Before Dom could properly reply, the elevator disgorged a group of Adam's staff. They immediately began removing the red velvet canvas from the mysterious pile. The pile was far less interesting than Dom had hoped. It consisted of an assemblage of tables and chairs in various stages of assembly. The gentleman at Adam's desk stood and watched. The only interruption was a subtle motion from Adam, who had withdrawn a cavalry scimitar from one of his desk drawers and tucked it under his arm. Dom threw an idle comment at Lord Stein, forgetting his place for a moment. "Careful, Lord Stein, ye may well clip an arm from the body." His thickest and worst impression of an English accent slid out of his mouth like a slush of words. Adam's reply was a measure colder than Dom had expected. They had been chatting like old friends for 10 minutes at that point, and the change in tone made Dom's nerves stand on end. "You should know better than to belittle an officer's mark of the station, Corporal. I led men in the First World War. The memories are not kind, much like your own. Your frenzied penchant for bloodshed revealed to me in this room could only be the result of loss and violence. You lost someone, much like I did, to that horrible charnel house." Dom huffed. "You been checking on me then?" Adam rose to his full height to dwarf Dom. "I always keep tabs on people who cavort with my enemies." The accusation was there. It didn't have to be said. Dom questioned, "Who?" He would not retreat from some stitched-together amalgam of borrowed bits and second-hand organs. Not when his reputation was on the line. His pride wouldn't let him do it. Jackie piped up. "Boss, I think he's mad about you getting pushed around by that cookie Major." Adam cleared his throat. "Major?" Dom pondered aloud. "He threatened Jackie's life unless I hunted down some Thulian scum for him." Adam's face hardened to stone as he spoke. "A man with a British accent arranged for the accosting of my wife. He disappeared before my eyes when I pulled her from his trap." Adam shared more while his face took a malicious turn. "We dredged up an associate of his from the ocean during our escape. The man was left for dead, stabbed a dozen times by a master at knife play." Dom caught the hint as Adam connected a few of his dots. In unison, they stated, "Major Ashfield." Dom had a solid understanding of the Major's motives and methods. Adam now knew how and why the Major's ploy involved his wife. With Lord Stein out of town, there was no leadership. No leadership meant a slow reaction time to unwanted events. It also meant the different organizations under Stein's thumb could not communicate properly. Dom and Adam's shared thinking continued. By near miraculous good fortune, Dom beat the mummy. Desperation and stubbornness likely had more to do with their victory than talent or skill. The fact that Ashfield was still out there, plotting and scheming in the shadows, sat poorly for both detective and philanthropist. Revelations were afoot in the Babylon. Dom added his portion to the conversational stew. He wanted to send me to shoot a few Thulian jerks who came to the city. He also bragged about putting your wife in a rough spot. Stein cleared his throat, looking embarrassed at his failure to maintain stoic discipline. Sighing, he tapped his fingers on the desk as he regained his composure before he continued. It would be fitting of him to endanger someone as a distraction. His trouble is, I am obliged to hunt him and his co-conspirators down like dogs and end them, for even thinking attacking my beloved is an acceptable act. Stein gained some conviction regarding his next course of action. I will put in a word to his superiors about this matter. Their elders still owe me a few favors for my service during the Great War, declared Stein. Matters handled for the moment, Lord Stein changed the subject to a more pressing matter than nefarious business. Now that you have elucidated my concerns, we can get to the primary matter you are here to discuss. With perfect timing, Polina escorted Papa Mac out of the elevator and into Stein's office. The work crew left, having finished setting up a conference table and enough chairs. Adam clapped his hands. Wonderful. Now, if everyone has a seat, we can start the meeting. Mac cleared his throat. When Lorenzo asked me to come, I thought I was in trouble. Now I see that to be true. Max still simmered from the abuse his son had inflicted at the theater. The last time Dommy sat with me without screaming, he was 16. No, it had to be 17. Dom cleared his throat. 17. And I joined the army afterward. Mac looked like was slapped. Adam gave Dom a stern look. Lorenzo had come prepared for the opening salvo and interjected to draw some of the kids' ire. One way or the other, this open hostility was going to end. Come on, kid, let's keep things civil before our large and dangerous friend. I am sure cleaning blood is expensive. Lorenzo looked at the ceiling as he chose his next words carefully. You know, it took a lot of negotiation to get you in with the most unlikely therapist I could have dreamed of. Despite his near-crippling sandwich addiction, a friend made solid points that make me feel like there could be some peace between you. It is if you can talk for 30 seconds without screaming. This wise friend of mine said you two can't get along because you are too alike. Dom and Mac turned in unison, looking at Lorenzo in shock. I tried being nice. I tried being supportive. I ran to my wit's end to get you to bury whatever hatchet keeps you running to me about the other one. Lorenzo pressed on. Listen, kid, you may think you're immortal, but each time I turn around, I find you digging into something that'll eat you alive. I feel like I will worry myself into a second early grave. And after everything else, I find you half dead on your feet or drunk as a bum. I don't know what drives you to your hard-boiled heroics, but before you get yourself killed, I will see you and your father have a damn civilized chat. I'm not going to ask you two to kiss and make up, but you both will finish a single conversation. Dom opened his mouth, but Adam silenced him with a glare. Lorenzo looked exasperated, locking eyes with Mac and not letting him look away. I love you like a father. I would die to keep you safe 1,000 times over. Getting to help Dom as he was growing up, to watch over him, was the greatest honor of my existence. I never thought I could raise a kid. Half the time I wanted to scream, but we made it through. The Papa of New York can hobnob with big wigs and scare the death out of his enemies, but gets tongue-tied when he talks to his kid about anything not forced by the token. Mac glowered at his second-in-command before sitting back to ponder. Lorenzo swung back to Dom. Okay, kid. It is time to air some laundry. I am sick of the drama. It's time to dredge up whatever beef makes you act like a moody teen and squash it. Am I clear? Mac has offered you anything you wanted every day of your life. If you're mad about not getting all the bells and whistles in life, be mad at yourself. I was overjoyed when you got home from war, but since you've returned, you mostly give me the cold shoulder. I get off well in comparison. Your dad gets nothing but frost. Granted, you are more civil than you were in your teens, but I want to know what's happening. Dom felt his face grow hot as he tried to word a response to his assigned father. Look, Lorenzo, there is some bad history. Lorenzo's fist came down on the table so hard the wood cracked and shattered in spots under his knuckles. I know most of the history, bright boy. I have been here from the start of this whole damn mess. Lorenzo let himself go too far. The vampire had all eyes on him as he tried to check his aggression. Yelling was not going to get the kid to open up. Every fatherly instinct wanted to shake Dom until he talked. The frustration was overwhelming. Something else was eating at him. He told himself it was a little thing, a tiny bit of remorse. He had decided to change his relationship with Dom. Dom was the kid he raised and loved like his own son. He was his son. Now he was giving that kid away. It gnawed at his guts to keep going, but he had to do what was best for Dom. He would never leave the kid in a gilded cage or out in the cold. He deserved a relationship, any relationship, with the man who sired him. A part of him didn't want to do this to give up what he had with his kid. Lorenzo was discovering how hard fatherhood could be. Dom, something happened before you split, and you're damn well going to tell me what it was. Dom did not flinch at the outburst. His eyes closed tight. Taking a few deep breaths, Lorenzo calmed himself and tried again. For being so smart, you can act real dumb. Do you have any idea how bad it hurt me when you left? I prefer being dusted than knowing you went off to fight and die. I kept imagining what I'd say to the Reaper as a flag lay draped over your coffin. It got so bad I went overseas to drag you home. I was almost too late when Mac finally let me go. Dom turned to Lorenzo in shock. You were in Germany? Yeah, kid. Why did you split on me? I raised you from a baby. I think I deserve to know that much. Dom slowly nodded. The vampire had a point. The secret he'd kept had been weighing on his chest like a dumbbell for years. He stared at the table, pulled a faded scrap of paper out of his pocket, and held it out for the vampire. Lorenzo looked at the paper like a man confronted with a snake. Did the kid write an explanation down at some point and never work up the nerve to give it to him? Blinking, he squinted at the faded writing. The color drained from his face. Dom shut his eyes, expecting to get yelled at or screamed at. He expected anything and everything except for the hug he received. Lorenzo embraced the detective in a heartfelt moment. Kid, I am sorry. I should have told you, was all Lorenzo could manage. The note told a tale of Mac, the heartless monster. It talked about the man who ordered the murder of his wife on the eve of the birth of his only son. Lorenzo stood up and collected himself. After straightening his tie, he met Mac's expectant gaze. Some jackass told your son you hated your wife Danelle and ordered someone to kill her on the day he was born. Mac looked horrified. His voice was a hoarse, barely above a whisper. They used the name of my beloved to wound my boy. A tear loosed itself from his eye. Dommy, I would have died 100 times. I would have walked into the sunshine with a smile if it meant I could have let her see you grow up. Lorenzo collapsed into his seat, feeling his years on the earth weigh him down as he started to speak. Kid, your mama had me running around half of Manhattan before you arrived at the party. Papa Mac worried himself sick that she was going to hurt herself or you running around like a madwoman to get everything perfect. The day you were supposed to come, a doctor came to see you into the world, but you were as stubborn then as you are now. Your mama was a trooper and dealt with the contractions and pain. However, when midnight struck, so did a creature. Whatever hit us killed more than half of the crew in moments. Vampires, who came over from the old world, stood their ground and fought to the last. The creature struck Mac down when he tried to hold it off, leaving your mom to fight alone. She used her smarts to make the bastards scream and run off in pain, but the fight left her on death's doorstep. Mac dragged himself over to her as the doctor fought to save you both. She knew her ticket was punched and made Mac swear you would see the sunrise. She died soon after getting to hold you for the first, and last, time. Mac opened his vest and pulled out an old-fashioned pocket watch. Inside was a picture of a woman embracing a smiling Mac. Dom felt like he was going to throw up. Grief and pain overwhelmed him. The story, the truth, and the pain caused made his vision grow dim as black splotches formed. When calming vines rested on his hands, the detective drew in a shuddering breath to collect himself. Jackie piped in at long last. Boss has real bad nightmares about that night, or at least that story. At least when it ain't about bombs blowing Buddy's legs out from under him. He dreams of L turning his back on him and telling him he's worthless. They are all stupid dreams, but they eat him alive with fear and worry. Lorenzo patted Dom on the shoulder. You are not going to get rid of me that easily. I failed you by not seeing how close to the edge you were. I was distracted trying to be a half-decent father figure and stand-up mob vampire. After your mama died, I took it personally. I wanted to help. I wanted to be by your father's side when he got vengeance. But Mac had other plans. Mac sat back and looked up as he spoke. I was sick with grief after losing your mama. I begged Lorenzo to look after you so I could figure out what to do. He got attached and started making excuses about why nannies and people I tried to use for help were no good. Eventually, I got wise to the real deal and stopped pushing. Lorenzo tried to step in to lighten the mood. So now you see why this lone wolf detective shtick is giving me an ulcer. Polina snorted. It isn't so bad being a wolf. Jackie piped in, Boss, I think Polina likes being a wolf because she is so beautiful. The pumpkin's compliment made the Russian blush. Several people chuckled as they decompressed a bit. The older vampire looked across the table at his son, not the yelling teenager anymore, but a full-grown man who saved the city twice over. Look, Dommy, I missed you growing up. You were right when you thought I was a jerk. I ain't got no excuse for that. Your mama would beat me senseless if she were around to see how I acted. But you're a man now. I failed you as a father in every other way, but I made a good call in letting Lorenzo look after you. At last, Dom got up from his chair. He walked around the table and stood over Mac for a long moment. Slowly, he dropped to one knee, lowering his head. Pop, for the bad or good, the military forced me to grow up. When I came back with Jackie, I wasn't the same person. I hated you for a long time after I read that letter. I ran away because I was afraid of you. I had to escape. Jackie came into my life and made it impossible to hate blindly. When something loves you unconditionally and needs you as much as he needed me, I don't know. I feel like Jackie broke through that hate. From my heart, I am sorry for my part, and I forgive you for yours. Lorenzo was sure pigs would do aerial shows before his kid admitted he was wrong. He guessed they were flying around somewhere at the moment. Pride beamed off Mac as he pulled Dom off his knee and into the biggest bear hug ever. Coming from you, it means more to me than you will ever know, Dommy. Okay, enough mushy stuff. What if we try to do this family thing in baby steps? How about we spend an hour together on odd occasions? Like once a month to catch up. No token, no mafia boss pulling your leash. How about I send Lorenzo on the quiet with requests and some cash if I need Ya to do something? Dom nodded, stepping back from the hug. I think that's something we could both live with. Adam clapped his hands together with a grin. Well, gentlemen, I would say this was a productive meeting.